A new season with new hopes and a new quarterback begins on Sunday with a new quarterback facing his team's old quarterback. Of course, we could be talking about the New York Jets, but we're not. We're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, who will face the New York Jets at MetLife Stadium coming up on Sunday. Thanks very much for joining us for another season of The Matchup presented by Shell Polymers alongside Missi Matthews and Matt Williamson. I'm Rob King. Guys, to say the least, this has been an eventful offseason from the quarterback position to massive changes around the roster.
Yeah, I think it's the way they also did it. Multiple big trades, the DK Metcalf trade, obviously picking up Aaron Rodgers, big splashes in free agency, and I think new quarterback, new wide receiver, new running back for the ones, it's completely different.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're going to be one of 13 teams that is guaranteed to have a new leading passer, rusher, and receiver. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And a lot of household names they've added. DK Metcalf, Ramsey, as you mentioned. So an unusual and fun offseason for sure.
And that's following, of course, a 10-7 finish a season to go. So the Steelers making a lot of overhauls to the roster despite that good finish. So let's get to the key matchups as we see them with the Steelers opening up at MetLife Stadium against the Jets. And Missi, let's begin with you because one of those new acquisitions, DK Metcalf, who's been to the Pro Bowl a couple times, he's going to be facing one of the best in the business, presumably, and that's Sauce Gardner, the cornerback for the Jets.
Yeah, and this is going to be the third meeting between those two guys, obviously from a different team. But I think, we didn't see DK in the preseason. We didn't see Aaron Rodgers, but we have seen so much of them during practices, during training camp. And you marvel every time you watch DK practice, how he finishes, how he catches the ball, just how big he is, and what him and Aaron are doing to try to build that chemistry, that relationship. It's why Coach Tomlin made them suite mates in Latrobe at St. Vincent College. But I think going against Sauce, neither of them are completely trash talking, but they're saying little things back and forth as you hear what the Jets are saying, and Sauce is saying he knows how to get under DK's skin and makes them really angry, and DK's like, well, I don't care what they do, like they got to cover me. And I do think with the new regime that has come in for the Jets, you are probably going to see a lot of Sauce on DK. And I'm excited about that matchup for sure on Sunday.
1,000%. And Sauce, or the Jets during Sauce's time, they've mostly been a left-right corner team. They play a lot of zone. But as you mentioned, there's a Lions staff coming in, and they led the league in man coverage. And they just paid him a big contract. I think he's going to follow number one receivers all year round. And this is a perfect example. And he's got the size to deal with Metcalf.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the fascinating matchups with, of course, Aaron Rodgers. Let's not forget him,
Sure.
at quarterback here. And I think for my key, it's keeping Aaron Rodgers upright. Because when I look at, the battle of four number one picks, right? Both offensive tackles for the Steelers. Troy Fautano, basically a first-year starter at right tackle. Broderick Jones has been moved to the left side. So he's starting for the first time as a left tackle. That's why they drafted him. But, Will McDonald had 10.5 sacks last year. 2 years ago, Jermaine Johnson went to the Pro Bowl. He had 7.5 sacks, missed most of last year with an injury. So those guys, and can they rush the passer? This will be a pretty good test to me for those offensive tackles right out of the chute, trying to keep these guys off of Aaron Rodgers.
100%. Johnson's not as well known, but he had a really good year before his injury like you mentioned, 2 years ago. McDonald's a little undersized, but they're both highly talented.
I think, too, the fact that Coach Tomlin played a majority of that offensive line for the Steelers in the preseason, getting that continuity. Not with Aaron Rodgers, but they are young guys with Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick making that year two jump. No Isaac Seumalo in the preseason. Let's bubble wrap him. I remember what happened last year around this time. But I think, too, it's ironic that Will McDonald is the guy the Jets ended up getting in the Broderick Jones draft because the Steelers traded up with New England and they thought it was, taking the Jets player. So it will be, as you said, a very good test for Aaron Rodgers in this young offensive line.
And an early test as to whether this offensive line is going to be as good as the Steelers think it's going to be. And, of course, some fans are worried about how it's going to be. So we'll see. We'll begin to find out because that's a pretty good test for that young offensive line for the Steelers. Matt, your keys. The Jets, they play a 4-2. That's their base. It's not a 4-3. It's a 4-2. And they've got two very active inside linebackers.
Yeah, they really do. And we were just seeing clips of Quinnen Williams, their defensive tackle, who needs to be mentioned. I mean, he is a disruptive force. But not only is he a great penetrator, but he also keeps those guys pretty clean behind him. And both those linebackers are very, very active. One of them's Quinnen's brother, and Sherwood's the other. And as much outside zone as the Steelers run, these guys get to the edge quick. You really need to get some big bodies on those linebackers. They're also pretty good in coverage.
Yeah, and Quincy is the brother.
Yes.
But the other thing I think we should point out, they just traded for Harrison Phillips, so another good defensive tackle. But again, the idea, and we've seen that with the Steelers in the past, way back when the idea of Aaron Smith and those big defensive line was keep the guys off the linebackers. Well, that's what the Jets want to do here defensively. So we'll see whether they're able to pull it off. So we wanted you to have an opportunity to show off your black and gold knowledge with Immaculate Prediction. This week's first place prize is an autographed DK Metcalf jersey. And here's this week's question. Will Aaron Rodgers have over or under 250.5 total passing yards? This game is exclusively in the Steelers mobile app, so go get your picks in now, and good luck. Up next, much is expected of the Steelers defense this year. What are the keys to them stopping Justin Fields and the Jets? That is up next when the matchup presented by Shell Polymers continues.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
Welcome back to the matchup presented by Shell Polymers. It is time to turn our attention to the Steelers defense against the Jets offense. And guys, last year, Steelers defense allowed 20.4 points per game. That was 8th in the league. But we all remember 27 points against Philadelphia. Then it was 34 against Baltimore, 29 points against KC, and then, of course, 270 yards rushing by Baltimore in the playoff defeat. So the defense was clearly, Matt, something that the Steelers wanted to upgrade in the offseason.
They did, and they brought in a lot of big-name guys. I like their draft picks as well, first-round pick that we're not going to see yet, but that's okay. I really think the depth on defense is really impressive at this point, too. And you know you're going to need it over the course of the year, but as you mentioned, a lot of their worst appearances were late in the season. Can they keep these guys fresh for 17 and maybe more games?
Yeah, fascinating stat from last year that I may have picked up from Matt Williamson was that Cam Hayward, when he was on the field, the Steelers were second best in the league in yards per carry. When he was not, they were 31st. So they went out, they shored up the defensive line. Now, no Harmon in this one. Can this defensive line stop the running game for the Jets? Now, the Jets are going to be without Elijah Vera-Tucker. He is one of their leaders. He's a captain. He's a right guard. He's one of 3 first-round picks on the offensive line. He is out for the season with a torn tricep. So that's a big blow to them. But you bring in a running quarterback like Fields. You bring in a tough, hard-minded coach like Aaron Glenn. You have a trio of running backs that you like. Clearly, it seems very clear to me, Missi, that they want to take the ball and try to ram it down the Steelers' throat and ram it down the throat of every team they're going to play. Well, that didn't really turn out too well for the Steelers when teams did that later in the year last year. So this is a big test to me right out of the chute. Can these defensive tackles stand up against the Jets' running attack?
Yeah, and I think 2 quotes from Coach Tomlin after the wild card loss in Baltimore. He said, before I even got in the shower, I was already thinking about what we need to do on defense for this upcoming season. And then on Tuesday during his weekly press conference to preview the Jets, they're not bashful. They're going to run the ball, and we know that. And as you said, Justin Fields is a major component of that. We have seen during his 6 starts with the Steelers last season what he is able to do with his legs. I think of the Colts game when I think of Justin Fields a lot too, and I just think that it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, the defense familiar with him, but he's in a completely different system too.
It wouldn't shock me if the Jets are the heaviest run team in the league this year.
I agree with you.
They're designed, like you said, there's 4 ball carriers that are going to get the ball in their hands with regularity. They've invested in an offensive line. And what worries me, and this is true for all 32 teams, none of these players have played a full game since the game they were eliminated, whenever that was. So if you stop the run for the first half, is that going to be the same in the fourth quarter when stamina, durability, things like that start to play on you?
Right. I also wouldn't be surprised if Justin Fields, who Mike Tomlin singled out in that press conference as being a difficult guy to tackle, not just a speedy running back, but a physical guy. Wouldn't surprise me if they have a lot of design runs for him, more than you might normally see out of the quarterback position for a team looking for a more balanced attack. Missi, your key, the Steelers' outside linebackers against the Jets' bookend first-round draft picks at offensive tackle, including a rookie at right tackle where TJ Watt's going to be lining up.
Right. And you mentioned Davey T, the torn tricep. He's out. I think, he was kind of that Isaac Seumalo security blanket who can help a young guy get through this. And TJ Watt, new contract. Last time he got a new contract, I remember what he did week 1 in Buffalo, just, tore that team to shreds. He is focused. Alex Highsmith said he is healthy from his preseason injury, and Nick Herbig we're waiting to see, but as you said, they are investing in that portion of their offense. Last year in the first round, this year once again, and Olu Fanu, I just think with TJ Watt, it's going to be something that they can take advantage of, and hopefully for him and their first round pick from this year, Armand Membu, that it is something that they can utilize to help get after them. And I think with, Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey, the guys in the back end can help sometimes in terms of the rush.
Yeah, I think all these things are tied together, Matt, right? So you talk about the defensive tackles. Can they stop the run and get teams into obvious passing situations, 3rd and 7? And then your key, as we lead to that, in this game and specifically, they have one receiver that you really have to keep an eye on. That's Garrett Wilson. Can you minimize him? Can you play that man defense that allows Missi's key, those linebackers, to get home? But let's move on to your key, which is trying to control Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, one little thing about what we were just talking about too, though. Membo was my favorite offensive lineman in this draft, but this is a steep test to deal with TJ over and over. And Fields' history shows he really holds the ball a long time too. I mean,
as long as anybody in the league.
Over his career, it's at the very highest in the league. But much like the Steelers, they have a clear number 1 wide receiver in Garrett Wilson, and he's tremendous. He's a phenomenal talent. But unlike in previous years when it was just Porter, the Steelers have 3 high-quality man coverage corners that have followed receivers throughout their career. I don't know what the answer will be. Will they just keep the corners static and wherever Wilson's at, they'll just give him more attention? Or will Ramsey follow him? Will Porter follow him? Will Slay follow him? I don't know that answer. But I think you have to look at it like, if the other receivers beat us, I can live with that. If this guy tears you apart, I'm not fine with that.
And also, the fact is that you can't, with these corners, you should not be able to hide a great receiver. Now, it's different when you have Cincinnati. They're going to line up. You're going to have receivers all over the field. There's one. And look, Mason Taylor's a fine-looking young tight end, but this is the guy. But almost no matter where he moves, there's somebody that can cover this guy.
You would think so. If he's moving to the slot, well, he gets Ramsey. If they just left-right their corners, well, you get Porter, you get Slay. I mean, there's no great answer for the Jets of where to scheme him up.
Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I know we've talked about so many unknowns and why there is excitement for week 1, but I do think the 3-headed monster is Cam Hayward called Slay, Porter, and Ramsey is the one that we really don't know what we're going to see. That's the one that I'm watching for on that side.
Can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. The Steelers visit the New York Jets to open the 2025 season. Kickoff is scheduled for 1 p.m. at MetLife Stadium coming up on Sunday. For Missi Matthews, Matt Williamson, I'm Rob King. We thank you for watching this edition of The Matchup, presented by Shell Polymers.